Hello and welcome to the last Micro Live before Christmas. Tonight we'll be looking at how to turn a micro into a graphic system and giving a seasonal flavour to pie charts. We're going to California to see how one wine producer is using computers to improve the quality of his wine. But first, a look at some of the latest hardware and software for musical micros.
Well, this is a professional music synthesizer which can create up to 8 different instrument sounds simultaneously, 8 different so-called voices. Now, of course, a human being can't play all 8 sounds at once, not from a single keyboard, but a machine can by using MIDI. That's the standard interface system which allows various musical instruments to communicate with each other. This synth here has a MIDI interface, and so too does the Atari ST computer. So you can send control information from the Atari to the synth, and that feature has attracted some pretty impressive software from Steinberg Research. It turns the ST into music's equivalent of a word processor, what you might call a music processor. Tony, what can it do?
Well, the software's been designed to be as comfortable and as friendly for a musician to use with a computer as possible. So if you look at the main screen, you'll see down at the bottom we have play, record, rewind, tape counter, the things you'd find on a tape recorder.
Just like a tape recorder, yes.
Exactly. And along the top here we have the 24 track select boxes. Tells you what you've recorded, what tracks are active.
Now, some of these tracks have got on marked on them, and that tells me that you've already recorded something.
That's right. There's a bass part and some drums that I've already recorded. So if I just play those for you, you can hear them. And at the bottom you can see the relative amplitude of the different tracks going up and down as they play.
Very realistic sounds, but let's make it absolutely clear. Those sounds aren't coming from the Atari, are they?
No, they're coming from the synthesizer, and the Atari is acting very much like a master controller, and it's telling the synthesizer what to play, how long to play it for, what notes, etc. like that.
And all that information is information that you have put in from the keyboard.
Yeah.
How difficult is that?
It's very simple, really. You treat it just like a tape recorder. If I wanted to overdub, for instance, a brass sound on top of what we've already recorded, I just press that button. We get a 2-bar count in to give me the tempo of the piece.
Well, you make it look very easy, but if I was doing that, I'm sure I'd make a pig's ear of it.
Well, if you make a mistake, of course, it's quite easy to go back and start again, but this software actually has a note edit page that allows you to look at what you've played in more detail. Now, across here, we have a 2-bar sequence, and these lines here divide the bars up. So there's 16 divisions in each bar there, and those black blobs are actually the notes I've played.
So the longer the blob, the longer the note you have.
That's right. These blobs are very short because I've played very short notes, but if I wanted to change that blob, I could make it a bit longer, and now we'd have a very long note.
Right, this is where that music processor idea
That's
comes
right.
in, isn't it? Just like a word processor.
And also, when you play in real time, your tempo as a human being can vary sometimes. The computer can actually auto-correct your tempo, move the beats that you've played, the notes you played rather, to the nearest beat. So if I choose 16 here, and then I auto-correct it, you watch the notes and you'll see them all shuffle along to the nearest beat.
Right. Would you always do that, in fact?
Not always, because sometimes the effect is maybe too wooden, too mechanical, and it's nice to have some of the human error to make it sound more comfortable.
Right. Right, well, there are lots of other features here, of course, that we haven't seen, but tell me, why are these X's on some of these tracks
Right,
up
well,
here?
that means that there's something recorded on that track, but you can't hear it. It's like a muting function that you find in recording studios. If I was to take those 2 tracks and put them into play mode, I can play the whole sequence now with some voices on these parts here.
Oh, we've got the doobie-doos there.
That's right.
Well, it looks terrific, and you do make it look very easy, but tell me, what do the pros make of it?
Well, a lot of studios now are using it as standard equipment. In fact, you find a lot of studios actually advertising this as part of their sales.
Did I see this advertised in the back of Melody Maker?
Yeah, a
on
lot of
couple
studios
yes.
use it now. And a lot of very famous artists use it, like Marillion, Dire Straits, people like that.
Terrific. Tony, thank you very much. Well, that's great. Put me down for one, please, Santa. The software sells for about £250, which isn't bad. But sadly, by the time you bought all the other kit here, the synths and so on, well, £2.5 grand is a bit beyond my budget. What about you, Leslie?
No, it's way out of my league as well. So let's come back down to earth. If you're on a limited budget, or maybe you've just got one of the old brigade 8-bit micros, there is still a good selection of add-ons which can help you to get started in processing your computer-aided music. Let's have a listen to this one. Well, you're listening to the music expansion system for the Commodore 64 rather, sorry. There's an add-on keyboard and a synthesizer. I think you'll agree it does give some pretty reasonable sounds. However, I've had enough of that now. If you want more than just a squeak out of the spectrum, then you'll first of all need to get it to drive a synthesizer. And this is one of the cheapest MIDI synths around. It's the Casio CZ101. And this is the sort of sound you'll get with this synth. Yeah, well, it's not brilliant, but remember, the sound quality does depend on your synthesizer. But how easy it is to use will depend on the software. And in this case, the software and the MIDI interface come from Cheetah, who specialise in the budget end of the music add-on market. And there are, of course, MIDI interfaces available for most of the popular micros, but this one is one of the cheapest at $49.95. But back to cheap synths for a moment, and one of the other problems with them is the tacky toy-like keyboard. Cheetah's answer to that is this new MIDI add-on keyboard. It is only a keyboard, it's not going to change the sound, but it does at least have a set of full-sized keys, so it feels right to play, and it costs only £99.95.
Well, here's an alternative approach which doesn't need a keyboard at all. It's an add-on box called the Music 5000 for the BBC Micro, and this is the kind of quality of sound. This tune is To the Manor Born, but for some reason they've chosen to play it on one of those awful club organs, at least it sounds like that. Mind you, I can change all that if I want to, simply by calling up another mix of sounds which I created myself. Same music, but totally transformed. Now, the music itself is entered in a programming language called AMPL. You define words in very much the same way as with Logo or Forth, and those words can be anything from a mix like that, a mix of sounds, to new individual voices. Well, I'll just show you the words that define the music you're listening to now. Yes, here we've got a couple of instrument voices there. We've got the mix defined, that's the one I did myself, mix 1, and these are various musical parts. So, for example, part 4A, that's a bit of the bass line, for example. Now, on this system, there are two main ways of entering your music. You can either use the staff editor, which lets you put music in conventional musical notation, you know, the dots, crotchets, and quavers, that kind of thing. Well, that's okay if you can't imagine music written any other way, but it is rather wasteful on memory, and you can't do odd things like playing 1/5 notes. So a more flexible method is to use what they call text entry, like this. Now, first of all, I'll ask the machine to get part 4A. Part 4A get is the syntax there. And there, that's how the music, and that's how part of the bass line is stored in the computer's memory. Well, a bit of explanation here. These letters refer to the musical notes, C, B, A, G. But does that B go up from the C, or does it go down? Well, the convention is that if it's lowercase, it goes down. If it's uppercase, it goes up. Very straightforward. So that's a descending C, B, A, G, and so on. These numbers, they refer to the length of the note. 48 in this case is a crotchet, and 24, a quaver. And of course, you can edit the notes just like editing on a word processor. You build up your music one part at a time, and there's room, even in the minuscule memory of the BBC B, for the whole of this piece. It's the last movement of Bach's Italian Concerto, and that's 3.5 minutes of quite busy 4-part music. It's a professional quality system, costs about £160, but it won't suit everyone. As you've seen, it's based around a programming language, so you need to be prepared to get your fingers dirty with a bit of code. Yes, gives a whole new meaning to a musical coda. So, to sum up on the various systems we've seen tonight, whatever your musical aspirations and however limited your technique, it's likely that there is something available to suit you. At the very least, you can get a micro to perform all the nifty finger work. And that opens up all kinds of possibilities, providing, of course, you've got the really important bit, the ideas.
The Californian wine industry has always had a problem convincing the connoisseurs that their red wines could be as good as the great French classics. But Leo McCluskey, manager of Felton Empire Vineyard, is using all his skills to persuade the experts that soon he will be able to reproduce the great red wines of France. Leo has set the wine taste as a problem. Can they detect a difference between several unidentified glasses of red wine?
There's a little bit of an off taste in that one, I believe. And
It's
feel?
precipitating in the mouth.
Mouth coating.
Yeah,
Mouth
right.
coating.
Let me go back over it in another order.
I assume this has been in French oak. There is very noticeable difference in the nose.
Definitely like this one. I think the best, and that's whether this one is the same as this one or the same as that one, I haven't really determined yet.
But Leo McCluskey believes he can tell an expert precisely what the differences between any two wines are. That's because he's the first wine grower ever to use computers to identify the compounds that give a wine its taste.
I'm convinced that our techniques have isolated the family of compounds that provide all flavor in red table wine. Sugar, acid, and alcohol are flavors, but there is no one in the world paying more money for high alcohol wine or high sugar wine. They pay money for wine with some magic in it, something Francais in it.
Leo separates the red compounds out of the wine and then feeds them through this tube. It's connected to a computer-controlled analyzer.
What we have here is the kind of analytical equipment that you can find at a California winery these days. This is a device which can crack wine into its individual components. Now what I'll do is take this Cabernet Sauvignon from the Napa Valley at Ridge Vineyards, and I'll inject it into the cracking device, and there we go. And we'll see how many components are in this Cabernet Sauvignon. And program the equipment. And start the computer. What we're seeing here is a fingerprint of a wine, but it doesn't tell us what's exactly in the wine. What it's going to tell us is exactly how many components are in the wine.
3 years ago, Leo would not have been able to tell what groups of molecules made up the compounds which produce the peaks in the printout. But now he can isolate them and then take them for analysis to the University of Santa Cruz. Despite its rustic appearance, the University of Santa Cruz is equipped with a brand new technology which can perform precise molecular analysis. A sample is carefully aligned before being placed in a nuclear magnetic resonance spectrometer. The spectrometer uses supercooled magnets to pass a huge magnetic field through the compound. This makes the carbon atoms in the compound vibrate, and the vibrations show up on the computer. It's then possible to compare the compound with the printout of a known chemical and deduce its structure.
What we're going to see here is a fingerprint of the carbon atoms in a molecule we've isolated from wine, from red wine. And we can compare this directly to known carbon skeletons, the fingerprints of known carbon skeletons, and completely identify this molecule and even build a three-dimensional model of what we think this molecule is.
These molecules, which give a wine its flavor, are present in different quantities in different wines, and so give the wine a distinct fingerprint. As Leo has now put many of the wine fingerprints on a personal computer, it's easy for him to work out the difference between two wines.
Well, each of these wines has a unique chemical fingerprint. You can see them here. And what I'll do now is I'll feed this unique chemical fingerprint reflecting each of the wine's unique chemical composition into the computer and ask it to solve one of the questions that came up during the sensory evaluation session, which is that we asked people, could they taste a difference between wine A and B? At the top, we have wine A from the sensory session. At the middle there, we have wine B, and we can ask the computer if there's a difference. And what we see is that it can measure a difference between wine A and B. Now, if we actually went back to the sensory evaluation session, we found out that only about half of the judges were able to see the difference displayed here at the bottom.
Leo is keen to know whether the wine tasters can detect a difference that shows up on the computer, as he can then use that information in his wine making.
Well, given that we can gather data with a very precise analytical tool, what we can then do is ask whether the human sensory capability is capable of the equal precision. If it is, then we become very interested in manipulating all winemaking practices which human beings can sense. So that's how we are initially using this information. We're looking at the classical, traditional French techniques to see which variations in those techniques that human beings can actually taste.
As Leo now knows which molecular characteristics appeal to the taste, he can change his ways of creating wine, both in the cellar and in the vineyard.
Well, we changed the timing of the cellar practices, the quantity of any given cellar practice, the fermentation cycles that are used to extract these molecules that have been measured in this very precise way. We have looked at vineyard sites, location, all the things a fine winery would usually be doing anyway.
The proof, however, is in the tasting. And the tasters are reluctant to give up their supremacy when it comes to determining what is and isn't a good wine.
Well, it is helpful. I mean, it's helpful to know what the constituents are, but it is only one half of the equation, because what makes a fine wine is the way anybody is responding to that wine. And so, yes, you know what is there, but that in itself is meaningless. It's how we respond to what is there.
But if Leo McCluskey can actually produce a Californian wine that is indistinguishable from expensive French red, even the wine tasters may have to forego the delights of nose and palate and use the scientific precision of the computer. I've been joined by Hugh Johnson, the author of the World Atlas of Wine and the annual Pocket Wine Guide. Hugh, you'd expect any wine grower from near Silicon Valley to use scientific methods and computers. Do you think McCluskey's gone further than anybody else in this area?
Well, I'm sure he has. I don't think anybody else has really got into all those analyses down to 450 chemical components or whatever it is, or more than that.
Well, do you think it would be possible, after all this analysis, to blend a wine to any sort of flavour that became fashionable?
Well, it might be possible. It'd be terribly expensive, and I don't really see that it would pay. But what I think is fascinating is that here is the computer being able to give the winemaker clues about the mysteries of wine. There are mysteries in wine, and if you can read them off on a graph made by a computer, then surely the computer can help him to know more about it. It won't tell him what to do about it, but he'll know more about what's giving the flavours to the wine.
I presume what he was trying to do in that film was to take the differences in those and see what differences actually people could taste.
Well, yes, Gerald Asher said that it is actually the appreciation that makes a fine wine in that film. That's not strictly true. The wine either is fine or isn't fine. Somebody has to be able to appreciate it. I think that the computers will certainly help make cheap, everyday wines come up in value, because they'll be able to analyse.
Do you think it's possible to tell the difference to make one that's indistinguishable from French wine, a Californian wine?
Maybe one day it'll be possible, but I hope it's never done, because the great joy of the subject is that California wine tastes like California wine, and French wine.
Right, well, I've got a little test for you here. We've got 4 wines here. 2 of them are from the vineyards that are mentioned in the film, and 2 are French wines, a Burgundy and one from Bordeaux. And we're going to ask you to taste them, and we'll be back for Hugh's comments in a few moments.
Great, isn't it? Some people get all the best jobs. Now, if you watch TV nowadays, you can't miss the high-quality computer graphics, even if you didn't know that that's what they were. The MicroLive graphics, for instance, are produced on a system called Quantel Paintbox, and it's £250,000 worth of equipment. But in the computer graphics industry, you now don't have to spend that amount of money to produce professional quality output, as you're about to see, because this system cost about £30,000. OK, it's a lot of money, but it's a drop in the ocean compared with the cost of the Quantel. Now, this is based on an IBM ATX with a couple of add-on boards, but as always, the secret is in the software. In this case, a high-resolution system from Graphic Products International. And this is the sort of thing that it can do for the front of books and record covers. But of course, it does take a graphic artist to drive it. Ian, you are a graphic artist. Tell us about the system.
Well, the equipment's fairly straightforward. I have a bit pad and a pen, and with the pen I can draw just as I would with pens or pencils. There's a keyboard with which I can input text or figures. Then a prompt screen which tells me whereabouts I am on the menu. And finally a colour monitor which shows me what I'm designing.
But you were an artist long before you laid hands on this type of equipment.
Yeah.
What are the advantages that this equipment gives you over your traditional tools like pencil and paper?
Well, two main things really, speed and flexibility. I can change things very quickly with a tool like this, and even at this point now I could change something very
You
rapidly.
mean with something like this bar graph, which actually looks like it's finished? So, supposing I wanted a different colour, could you do that?
Yeah,
Just like
that's
that?
easy. Well, I'll just go along to the colours section of the menu. And if I take, say, this N bar, I can change that to literally any colour I want.
Yeah. And look at that, I mean, you're not just getting a choice up there of do you want red, green, blue or yellow or something, you're going right through the spectrum of every colour, really.
That's right.
It's
Well,
very, very subtle.
I've got over 16 million colours to choose from, so I really can make any colour the one I want.
And you can change the depth of the shading and everything.
Yes, everything like that.
OK, well, a bar graph is one way to display this information. Supposing I came along and said, well, I want the information, I don't want it displayed that way. So let's have a pie chart, for instance.
Once again, that change is easy. If I just go along to the graphs area of the menu and literally just type in pi and replot, and that will come up as a pie graph.
What about lettering? Because usually this sort of work has a lot of text, doesn't it?
Yes, well, there are over 700 fonts to choose from. And you can do lots of things with text, like plot it at any angle, plot text on a curve even.
Yeah.
You could even, if you wanted to, change individual colours of letters.
So it's really very flexible.
Yeah.
And there's our pie chart. That's very nice, I like that. Now, what about the people who come along and commission artwork from you, your clients? What do they make of this?
Well, it's a great tool for them as well, because they can literally sit with you and make alterations and really do it at the last minute. And
Sounds like a graphic artist's nightmare, but a client's dream.
Now, of course, a professional like Ian is quite happy starting with a blank screen, but if you're not a natural artist, that blank screen can be very daunting. One way around that is to start with an existing image and then modify that. For example, you can grab a frame from, say, a video recorder or a video camera. And this MSX2 machine from Japan allows you to do just that. I simply press one key on the mouse here, and I've grabbed my frame there. The picture goes directly into the computer, where it's digitized and stored in the memory. And then it's displayed on the screen. Well, colour video pictures straight into a computer, that's pretty impressive. And the manufacturers tell us that if it went on the market here, it would be priced at just about £1,000. The software then allows you to modify these images, to change the colours and so on, until you have exactly the picture you want.
Well, we've taken a picture of, surprise, surprise, a mince pie using this video camera, and we've fed it into our professional graphics system, and it's just actually in the process of finishing drawing itself out. A digitised mince pie. Ian, what can you do with that apart from eat it?
I could give you a whole mince pie back if you wanted.
Have my cake and eat it, do you mean?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. How do you do that?
Well, what I need to do would be to copy an area of that pastry.
You're not trying to be particularly accurate there, are you?
No, well, I can always change things later.
So you're picking up some crust and some background.
And then I just copy those points, move that up a bit, copy those points around to fill over the gap. And just plot that.
A whole pie. Now, you've made a bit of a slip up here. You've left a gap and a bit of a line. Can you do anything to fill that in?
Yeah, sure. Well, if I can go up to the paint area here. I can actually pick a mode which allows me to push texture around on the screen. If I zoom in there and go in quite close, you can see the shape of the brush. And any colours that brush lands on, it actually picks up as a texture. You can drag that around, much like oil paint, really.
Yes, it's the nearest thing, really, to an electronic paintbrush. That's what it is.
Yeah. So eventually I could get rid of all these join marks.
Yeah. Now, what about the pie itself? Can you move that round the screen?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'll need to get a smaller one. So.
I mean, the way you say that, I just need to get a smaller pie. If you were working with pencil and paper, that idea, you just couldn't do it, could you?
Well,
hours of drawing.
You could, but it would take so much time. You wouldn't even. You probably wouldn't even consider it.
So it does open up whole areas of creativity.
Oh, certainly, yes. Well, if I clear the screen there,
Yeah.
now I've got the pie actually loaded on the end of my brush.
The power of the pie, what are you going to do with it?
Well, I could write a message if I wanted to.
What are you writing? Hello, Mum.
Why not?
Oh, a high-tech, low-tech message for your mum, and a happy Christmas to Ian's mum too. Thanks ever so much.
Thank you.
Well, the system is often used to produce artwork for books, magazines and company glosses, so obviously the pictures are needed to be on paper. And for that you use a conventional printer. This one is in fact a colour printer. Or you can use this. It's a digital film camera. Now effectively this takes a high quality photograph of the screen output. On the other hand, if you want a bit of seasonal animation, the system, and Ian can deliver that too.
Hugh, can you tell us something about the wines you've been tasting? Let's start off with wine A.
Yes, certainly. Well, to start with, there are two Cabernet Sauvignons here, one from California and one from, I imagine, Bordeaux. And there are two Pinot Noir wines. Wine A, I'm sticking my neck out, is a California Cabernet Sauvignon of sensational quality. It's a magnificent colour, everything about it is superb. That's the kind of wine that California can challenge France with, I think. But it's got a match in what to me is a perfectly beautiful Bordeaux, a Medoc.
Medoc it is, that's right.
I don't know whether it might be Saint-Julien or Margaux in the Medoc, but it's a fine chateau. But that's a more mature wine. I think it's an older wine than that.
Let's just do with those two, because you got right on the first one. That was indeed California wine. It's a Ridge Vineyard, which perhaps doesn't surprise you.
That's why it's
And the second one is indeed a Margaux, 1981 as opposed to 1984 for the... So you got those two right. How are you going to do on the next two?
Well,
difficult?
it's easy to see that they are the different grape. They're paler in colour. You see, the Cabernet is darker wine. The Pinot Noir is always paler colour. Burgundy is not a very rich colour, usually. Well, I think, you see, this could be a Burgundy from the Côte de Nuit. It's a rich kind of Côte d'Or Burgundy. If it were a Gevrey-Chambertin or a Nuit Saint-Georges, that wouldn't be surprising.
1983 Nuit Saint-Georges, correct. Well done.
Well,
just one to go.
No prize for getting this just being a California Pinot Noir. And very, very good wine without perhaps quite the nerve, the subtlety, the excitement, the liveliness that the Burgundy had. But... I mean, they're going along the right lines, whether they're using computers or not.
Do you think they're very, very close?
Yes, I mean, especially the Cabernets, really. Those wines, one could say, are equally good, but thank goodness they have different characters.
Well, thank you very much, Hugh. Well, they're very, very close, and I must give compliments to Leo McCluskey. His computers do seem to be working for him. By the way, you did it correctly also in rehearsals, which was very impressive. Leslie, what about coming along and sampling some of this wonderful wine? Perhaps you'd like a glass of it.
You shake the hand of the man. Computer's met its match. You pour the wine, Mac, because I'm going to say that's all for MicroLive for 1986. We'll be back in the new year at a new time of 6:15 on a new day, Saturday evenings. So be sure to watch out for us. And in the meantime, have a very happy Christmas.
And a preposterous new year. And now, to close the show,